Another piece that has entered the conversation to prevent mass shootings: violence in entertainment. Shortly after the shootings at Sandy Hook Elementary, NRA leaders blamed Hollywood, video games, and music for creating a culture of violence in our country. The prevalence of violence in media is tough to argue. According to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, television programs display 812 violent acts per hour. The typical American child will view more than 200,000 acts of violence, including 16,000 murders, before the age of 18. That's just on TV. The most popular movies and video games tend to be violent, gory, and graphic. Does that play a role in making a more violent society? WRAL's Renee Chu spoke with experts, parents, and teenagers to explore that question.
We all know sex sells, but the biggest seller in mass media?
What are you prepared to do?
Violence. The top earner at the box office for 2012, The Avengers, showing the destruction of New York City. Second was The Dark Knight Rises, filled with explosions and gun violence. The best-selling video game in the U.S. last year. The first-person shooter game, Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And the body count doesn't stop there. Showtime's Homeland won the Primetime Emmy of 2012. AMC's The Walking Dead is this season's highest-rated entertainment TV program with adults 18 to 49. Not to mention 7 of the 10 most popular primetime series are about solving violent crimes like NCIS and Criminal Minds. What holds 29-year-old Danny Shattuck's interest? Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Once a week, you'll find him at the Strafe Gaming Lounge in Fuquay Arena. His remote control, a simulated assault rifle.
You're pretty much trying to stop terrorists from destroying the world.
From the first-person shooter perspective, it's very intense, very graphic.
Yeah, absolutely it is, and that's why it's rated M for mature. I get a rush from trying to win. I mean, it's a game at the end.
Shattuck says it's pure entertainment and in no way translates into real life. But UNC Professor Emeritus Dr. Jane Brown says there is a link between violence kids and teens see on screen and their behavior.
The more violence they see in the media, or the more violent video games they play, the more likely they are to be aggressive in their own lives.
Dr. Brown has studied the effects of media for 30 years. She's not saying people who watch Kill Bill will want to go and kill someone in real life. She does say young people who are naturally aggressive see violence in the media and think it's an appropriate way to solve conflict.
And then we think the media probably reinforces those tendencies. So those people would be more likely then to be behaving aggressively after seeing a violent movie or after playing violent video games.
It's a connection Lisa McGoldrick wants to avoid, which is why her sons, 10-year-old Michael and 12-year-old Billy, stick to video games like Guitar Hero. Definitely no Call of Duty or Halo.
They can get a child to think that, wow, this is really cool, this is great. Look, I can shoot 100 people and I'm not getting killed. And I think that I think playing violence and watching violence sometimes does promote it, and I'm not one to promote violence.
In an exclusive WRAL poll, we asked 500 adults, is the level of violence in entertainment, including video games, a cause of mass shootings? The majority said violence in entertainment is either a minor cause or not a cause at all, but 31% said it is a major cause. Wakefield High School senior Patrick Hines says the blame on video games for causing violence is misplaced. If anything, he says the news media plays a role.
The shooter and the victim were taken to St. Louis Hospital.
I do believe that, when people report on, violence, wars going on in foreign countries, people getting shot and killed in their own neighborhoods, that kind of stuff, I believe, has more impact than any kind of video game.
Why is that?
Well, because it hits closer to home.
The realism of video games, it's just fantasy to die-hard gamers. 16-year-old Nina Saponera is president of the Video Game Club at Wakefield High. At school, they stick to tamer games, but occasionally she'll play first-person shooter games at home.
I just feel like that it's a video game. I know that it's a fake person. If I'm playing a war game that I'm shooting at, I know it's a fake person or something. So it doesn't really faze me in that sort of stuff.
What?
That was ugly.
20-year-old Lenny Hume prefers fighting games over shooter games.
What?
Bashing and killing your opponents, it's all part of the challenge.
Do you see it as violent?
Not really. I mean, when, like in a game, if to win, you need to beat up another player. I just see it as like an objective. Like I can play war games, but I don't have a desire to go shoot anyone in real life, but it's fun to do in a video game.
Experts say not all violence in entertainment has a harmful impact. Take, for instance, Schindler's List. The movie portrays the pain, power, and suffering from Nazi aggression and the Holocaust. It's violence with real consequences. The problem, experts say, is the gratuitous violence that we see in action films like 300. It glamorizes the brutality of war. It's all about how many people can we kill, how much blood spatter can we show.
We want to be emotionally stimulated. We like that in our entertainment media, and so violence is a cheap way to do it. It's cheaper than having really great dialogue and really great acting and other kinds of emotions portrayed. That's harder. Violence is easy.
The chairman of the Motion Picture Association of America says the movie and television industry stand ready to be part of the national conversation.
By thanking you all for being here.
The Entertainment Software Association recently met with Vice President Joe Biden and his Gun Violence Commission and says it looks forward to continuing the discussion. The group released this statement saying, in part, "We expressed in the meeting that the United States Supreme Court recently affirmed that the independent scientific research conducted to date has found no causal connection between video games and real-life violence." We did contact video game companies in North Carolina for their take. They declined to comment or did not respond.
It's loading up, sorry.
We did find Ryan Snell, who started his own video game design company in Cary this past year.
And then you actually slice them.
He's produced 14 video games, most of them he describes as tame and casual. Snell says the violence you see in many video games these days is not gratuitous. It serves a purpose.
The realer it is, the more gritty it is, the more people will feel immersed.
He says video game companies are marketing an experience, not murder.
It's just like playing a race car game and you run into a wall and your car doesn't get damaged, you feel like something's been taken away. You're just like, well, that's not how it works.
Don't move! No doubt violence works to thrill audiences. As much as violence appears on TV, Washington has no rules to regulate it. The FCC does regulate sex, nudity, and foul language, but nothing about blood and gore.
It's not only the parents who have to pay attention to this. The media must take some responsibility for this. It is egregious at this point. It is way out of line.
In our poll, we also asked if the government were able to require a reduced amount of violence in entertainment, would it reduce the incidence of mass shootings? 39% said a little. 36% said not at all. 20% felt government regulations would reduce mass shootings by a lot. Major medical and public health organizations have in the past called on Congress to step up based on years of their research.
We know from more than 50 years of really good studies that the media have an effect on adolescents' aggressive behavior.
Even more than that, Dr. Brown says violence in media can desensitize us all. Where violence portrayed goes unpunished or rewarded, only makes it seem more acceptable.
But you don't see this as contributing to a culture of violence in our society?
We've always been a culture of violence in America. Look at all the old books about the Old West, the old John Wayne movies. To be honest with you, Dante's Inferno is way more graphic than Call of Duty.
Video games have ratings, and retailers say that does help keep mature-themed video games out of the wrong hands. But there's no substitute for parenting. Nina Saponero's mom is okay with the shooter games now, but not before.
When her and her brother were younger, I definitely was, and they weren't playing it when they were young, but now they're 19 and 17. I really don't, because I know how my children are, and they're not violent at all.
Everybody wants to find something to blame, but they don't understand. The problem is, we're a country of absentee parents.
And a country that loves its entertainment, no matter how violent.
Wow.
Renee Chu, WRAL News.
Unlike in the U.S., many countries have regulations restricting TV programs with excessive violence to certain time periods when it's more suitable for adults. Brazil, Canada, the U.K., France, Germany, and Spain are just some of the countries that regulate violence on TV.